So listen carefully for your instructions for today. You'll notice this is our temperatures test that we took this week. And this is not something I typically do where I go and I review the test line by line. However, this year's test was significantly lower in terms of grades than last year's test. And I don't understand why, because it was the same test. I'm the same teacher. We did all the same activities. So I felt like we need to examine our answers here and make sure that you have a better understanding of temperatures before we move forward, because temperatures drive most of the other discussions about the weather. So here's what you are going to do. Here are your instructions. You were given a blank sheet, blank answer sheet. As I go through the explanations, I need you to write your answer on this, and you are going to mark the correct answers that I tell you as we go through this test. If you do that at the end of the class period, you will get a done stamp if it scans out as 100, because I'm going to tell you all the correct answers. This will be added to your temperatures unit notebook, which a lot of you were deficient in that particular unit. You didn't have enough done stamps. So this can help. It'll raise your notebook grade by 5%. So listen carefully, and you're going to turn this in at the end of the class period. If it scores at a 100, which means you listen, pay attention, got all the correct answers, the correct understanding, you'll get an extra done stamp. Also, this is going to help you for the test recovery. If you scored substandard on this test, I'm going to offer a recovery option online on Friday. So this will help you score better on the recovery and get those substandard grades up to at least a 70 so that it doesn't hurt your average. So at this time, I want to start going through this. And all you have to do is mark the correct answers. The vocabulary. I'm not going to go through and explain every vocabulary term. I'm just going to go ahead and mark them on here, and you're going to transcribe them. But you need to look and read, hey, why is that the correct answer? And you can compare it to your answer document from when you took the test and see what was right and what was wrong and why. So here's the vocabulary answers. Stop at this time and bubble these in as you read what the correct answers are and comparing it to your answer document from the test. Now for the concept questions, I'm going to go through these for some explanation. Which one of these diagrams correctly shows the orientation of the Earth to the sun on the date shown? The NP represents the North Pole, or our hemisphere. June 21st, the North Pole tilted towards the sun. Well, we know that's true. But we've got December 21st, that's winter. The North Pole would be pointed away. Here we've got June 21st, North Pole pointed away, December 21st pointed towards. Not correct. June 21st, the summer solstice, we're pointing towards. December 21st, pointing away. This one here, June 21st, we're not pointed towards or away. That would be an equinox. So the correct answer there was C. Why is the temperature lower at higher elevations? When temperature is friction, there is less air at higher elevations, so that you're going to have a lower temperature. Energy for temperatures on the Earth is transferred from the sun by radiation. Why are temperatures colder in winter? Well, that's because the sun is lower in the sky and sunlight is more spread out, so the sun is not as intense. It says use the diagram on your answer sheet to answer questions 20 through 25. So here we go. Which letter would represent the summer solstice for Georgia? That would be when we are tilted most towards the sun. We're on this part of the Earth, we're on the top hemisphere. Letter C, here we are, we're tilted or leaning most in towards the sun, so the answer there is C. A lot of you got this backwards. You said, oh, over here on the left is summer. No, that's not what makes summer. Summer is where you're leaning most towards the sun, and the way this diagram is oriented, it's letter C. At which letter would Georgia have the longest day and get the most sunlight? That is also C, because that's what the summer solstice means. Which letter represents the fall equinox for the northern hemisphere? Well, if this is summer, and we can see the arrows, Earth is going this way. The season that starts after summer is fall, so that would be D. What season is the southern hemisphere? Not us, but opposite from us, when the Earth is at position 4. Here's position 4. Well, we know this is summer, this is fall, this is winter, because we're pointing away from the sun. This must be spring for us in the northern hemisphere. However, for the southern hemisphere, when we're in spring, they must be in fall. Which one of the following statements is true as the Earth is moving from D to A? So we got D to A. We're in the season of fall. Is it summer? No, we're in fall. The days would be getting shorter in Georgia. Very definitely true, because in fall, we're moving towards that shortest day of the year. Temperatures would be increasing. No, temperatures do not increase in the fall. The season is winter in the southern hemisphere. No, it is going to be spring in the southern hemisphere because it's opposite from us in fall. At which of these numbers would you predict the temperatures to be warmest in Georgia? So we know our warmest temperatures are going to be in summertime. Well, our summer starts at C and ends at D. Well, number one can't be correct because that's over here in fall season. Number three, that's in our winter season. That can't be correct. We've got 7 and we've got 4. 7 and 4. Well, 4 is in spring, 7 is in summer. So our warmest temperatures are definitely going to be at 7. So why is Barrow not impossibly cold during the winter? It's because it gets heat from the equator through the water because it is on the coast. And that would be that right there. What explains why the South Pole is so much colder? Well, that's because it is far from the water and it can't get any heat from an ocean current. Remember, the North Pole is all water, so it gets a lot more heat from the equator because it's closer to the water. It is all water. Why are places on the West Coast never very warm? Well, no, they're not all very far north. It's not that the ground is light colored. The Pacific Ocean is really big, so it doesn't ever really get that hot. Let's read the final answer. That side of the country is always tilted away from the sun? No. So the answer there is C. Which one of the following is not a factor that affects temperature? Longitude has nothing to do with temperature. Clouds affect temperature. Your elevation affects temperature. How far are you from the equator? All three of those are going to change your temperatures. The blank. The higher the elevation, the lower the temperatures. Oh, I know that's true. The farther from the equator, the more spread out sunlight is. Well, I know that's true. The closer to the water, the less the temperature change. I know that's true. So the answer there was all of the above. Which of the following true is true about places located near the equator? Sun is directly overhead. Yes. There is not much change. Definitely, because the sun doesn't change. Temperatures are usually very warm. Definitely, because you're getting direct sunlight. Answer there would be D. Looking at these graphs over here, which one would you think would represent a location that is farthest from the equator? So that would be something that changes a lot. That's going to be C. Changes the most because it's farthest away from the equator, has the greatest change in temperatures because it has the greatest change in sunlight. The farther away from the equator, the greater the temperature change. Yes. Generally, the cooler you are because you're getting less sunlight. Even in the summer, your sun's not as intense. But less sunlight received, D, all of the above. So we got city A and B, and they're located only about 50 miles from each other. Which of the following explains the differences in the temperatures? Well, A seems to always be hotter, and B seems to always be colder, but they're neighbors. A is at higher elevation. No, because higher elevation would mean you were colder. B is at a higher elevation. That makes sense. City A gets more sunlight. No, because their neighbors are getting the same sunlight. City A is close to water. Well, no, they're neighbors. So B, city B is at a higher elevation. Which would likely be experiencing a polar night in June. So a place that the sun does not come up in June. That means it's got to be winter. Well, June is winter in the southern hemisphere. You have to be a place above or below the Arctic Circle to experience polar day and polar night. So the only choice there would be E. Which location receives the greatest concentration of sunlight? Well, sunlight is strongest at the equator. That's going to be C. Which of these statements is true about the locations? The sun will never be directly overhead at D. Well, that is true because D is not in the tropics. It's outside of the tropics. It'll be close, but it'll never be overhead. C is most likely to have a period of 24 hours that the sun stays visible in the sky. That's polar day. It can't be correct. You only get polar day and polar night, those 24 hours of day or night, when you're above the Arctic Circle or Antarctic Circle. A would have less change of seasons than D. No, because it's far away from the equator. D is closer to the equator. Location C would have the least amount of change between seasons. Very definitely true. The diagram at left here shows daytime and nighttime distribution, the distribution of light over the course of 24 hours. Which date would this diagram most likely represent? So we've got long day in the southern hemisphere, and we've got short day in the northern hemisphere. So that is going to be December 20th. This is most likely December 20th. On March 20th or September 20th, we would see the day and night be the same because those would be equinox dates. On June 20th, we'd see a lot more light in the northern hemisphere, less in the southern. Which one of these graphs would most likely represent Hawaii? Well, Hawaii is going to be hot and doesn't have much change. That's going to be A. Which graph likely represents a location that is closest to the equator? Once again, some place that's going to be pretty warm and doesn't change a lot, it's going to be A. Yes, those two graphs can represent two different places. Which of the following statements is true based on the graph at right? So this one over here. This must be a location of very high altitude. Well, that just means it would be cold. We see this place actually gets kind of hot, so that can't be right. Location must be far from the equator. Well, it does have a big change, seems to be true. Location must be in the southern hemisphere. Well, that's got to be true because you'll see it has its coldest temperatures in the summertime, what we call our summertime. Location must be close to water. Definitely can't be close to water. Okay. So I'm liking C here. Location must be in the southern hemisphere because it is very far. The location being very far from the equator isn't as good an answer as southern hemisphere because it is a backwards graph from what we're used to. 48. Dubuque gets the same sunlight as something that's along this line here. That would be Crescent City. Insolation is the greatest where you're farthest north and sunlight spreads out the most. That's going to be Bar Harbor because it is farthest north. Which city would change the most between seasons? Once again, that's going to be the place that is farthest north. We've got Keats, Cambria, and San Diego. They're all on the west coast. So the one that is farthest north is going to have the greatest change between seasons. Which city gets the least amount of sunlight? That's the one that is farthest north. That's going to be Mitchell. Brunswick is, the temperatures are going to be most like Mobile because they're on the same latitude and they're both on the eastern ocean. San Diego gets about the same sunlight, but it's on the west coast. And of course, Morehead City is farthest north, which is going to be different than Brunswick. Which city likely changes the least between seasons? San Diego, Keats, Bar Harbor, or Brunswick? Well, we know West Coast changes less than East Coast, so we can roll these two out. It's got to be one of these two. The one that's furthest south is going to change the least, so it's going to be San Diego. Which city is likely warmest in the wintertime? We've got Bar Harbor, and we've got Mitchell, Keats. Well, we know Mitchell's going to change. It's going to get really cold. So between these two, which one is going to be warmer in the winter? It's going to be the one that changes the least. Give me there. What's the phenomena going on here? We got sunlight coming in, and it seems to bounce around and stay around the Earth. That is the greenhouse effect. Our atmosphere, these gases, trap sunlight and make it bounce around in our atmosphere, which keeps our planet a little bit warmer. Which one of the following explains the debate about global warming? We know the planet is getting hotter. There's no debate there. So that is not true. We can all read a thermometer. The planet is naturally moving closer to the sun. No, the planet stays the same distance from the sun. We know that. The Earth is not significantly warmer and therefore will not have no benefit. No, we know the Earth is getting warmer. That's not the debate. The argument is, are we causing that debate? And if so, can we change it? Which one of these represents the Gulf Stream? Well, that's that warm jet of water that comes out of the Gulf of Mexico and heads across the Atlantic. Which is definitely true about the greenhouse effect. It is entirely bad. No, we need the greenhouse effect. Otherwise, we get too cold at night. It decreases the Earth's temperature by reflecting sunlight. No, the greenhouse effect keeps us warmer. It is entirely caused by the actions of people. No, that's the debate. None of those statements are true. Which one of the following best explains the cause of the urban heat? Why are cities hotter than the countryside around them? It is primarily due to the lack of plants and trees. Death Valley, highest temperature ever in the world. Why? Yes, is at the low elevation. We know there's not many clouds. There are no plants because it's a desert. Why are there no plants? Because it's very dry. So all of the above explain Death Valley. The greenhouse gas that is most associated with global warming is carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide traps a lot of heat. Why have temperatures in the Atlanta area become so much hotter in the past generation? Well, it's because we have cut down our plants and trees and made more buildings and parking lots, and that makes our city get hotter. What is meant by this green roof? Well, that's when we put plants on top of a roof that help keep the temperatures down. If the earth was not tilted on the axis, we would not have any seasons. Which of the following has the lowest albedo? In other words, reflects the least amount of sunlight? That's going to be a black parking lot. Barrow, Alaska is not impossibly cold during a polar night because the oceans bring heat through water from the equator. Now, for the map questions, which location is most likely to have houses painted light colors? Well, that's got to be someplace warm where they got a lot of sunlight and they want to reflect all the extra sunlight they get. Well, we see 11 is down here in Miami. Well, we know they get a lot of sunlight. 16 is way up here in Mitchell, North Dakota. They don't get a lot of sunlight. 7 is located over here, Bar Harbor, Maine, or Portland, Maine. Once again, they don't get a lot of sunlight. They don't need to reflect a lot. And finally, location number 5 is, I'm going to skip around. It's the hardest part to this test. I missed it. Where is 5? 5 is over here in Utah, pretty far north. So the location that is going to have lighter colored houses is going to be in Florida, Miami. Which location is going to be warmest in the summer? We got 21. Location 21, we will circle. Location 21, San Francisco. We know San Francisco doesn't ever really get that hot, so we can scratch that one out. 23 is up here in the mountains in California. Well, mountains is so high up, probably not going to get real hot, but let's look at the other choices. 26, right here in the middle of the country. We know temperatures can change a lot here because you're far away from the water. It's not at a super high elevation. I think that place probably gets pretty hot. D, the other choice was 6. Well, that's the place on the water. So the place that is going to change temperatures the most and get hottest in the summer is 26 here in Kansas. Which location is coldest in the wintertime? So we'll find location number 19. Number 19. Bouncing around. Where is 19? I made this map and I can't find. 19. Here's in Ohio. Well, Ohio gets pretty cold. It's far from the water. It's kind of far north, so maybe. But let's look at location 25. Well, location 25 is way away from the water and it's further north. So we know 25, and it's in the mountains, which means it's going to be high up and get colder. 13. Location 13, well, that's pretty far south and at a lower elevation than 25, so it's likely going to be warmer in the winter. And finally, location 21 is San Francisco. We know San Francisco doesn't get that cold in the winter, so the choice there was location 25. Warmest in the summer. Which one of these is going to get hottest? We've got 12, 9, 13, and 1. So we'll find location number 12 is over here. It's on the coast. It's not going to get super hot in the summertime. Well, let's check the other locations. Number 9, it's way away from the water, low elevation. It's pretty far south. It's probably going to get hot. 13. Well, 13 and 9 and 12, they all get the same sunlight, but this one is higher in elevation, so it's going to be colder. And finally, number 1. Let's find where number 1 is. Way up here. Warmest in the summer? Well, it's way away from the water, but it's higher in elevation than 9. Location 9 is going to be the place that's going to get warmest. Coldest in winter. Let's look at location number 22. We'll find 20. Oh, 22 is Key West. It's not going to be cold at all. Number 7. Well, it's pretty far north, but it is on the water. So let's compare this to the other locations. 17 is pretty far north, but it's also on the water, but it's on the Pacific. So 7 is going to be colder than 17 in the wintertime. Finally, let's find location number 14. Number 14, San Diego. Well, that's far south and it's on the Pacific. It's not going to get cold. So the correct answer there is going to be 7. So at this time, if you will show me your answer sheet and I will scan it, if you get a 100, you get an extra done stamp. And hopefully this will help prepare you for the recovery test tomorrow if you need it.